Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into your sources, these really ancient, profound texts you've shared. We're going to unpack a truly unique concept, this intricate relationship between the divine and space-time. Specifically, how the second God, as these Christian texts frame him, actually comes to inherit space-time, even though he's divine. Prepare for some surprising insights.
Yeah, it's a fascinating core mystery these sources get into.
Yeah.
How the divine nature, interacts with the created world itself. The central idea really revolves around a divine transformation and the acquisition of ultimate authority. It shows how something inherently possessed can also be, profoundly received.
Okay, so the first thing our sources reveal is pretty startling. This inheritance wasn't just something that happened, it was a deliberate divine choice. We see hints of this in texts like Hebrews 1.2, right? It says, the Son was appointed heir of all things, and crucially, through him the universe was created. What's the implication there of that deliberate decision to become an heir?
Well, what's really profound here is that inheriting space-time, and in these texts, that really means the whole cosmos, all of created reality. It isn't just about ownership, like you'd own property. It's actually about receiving the name above all names. These sources, they suggest God is inherently greater than space-time itself, and he governs it by placing his divine name upon it. So this inheritance, it signifies ultimate dominion, not just simple possession. It's presented as a truly intentional act of divine will.
That raises a kind of fascinating paradox, doesn't it? If the second God is already divine and space-time is, inherently his through creation, how could he receive it as an inheritance? Seems a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah. It absolutely does seem that way. And the sources provide a really crucial answer to that very question. They explain that the second God emptied himself, that's the language in Philippians 2.7, taking on the form of a creature. This profound act of self-renunciation, setting aside his inherent divine rights. That was the mechanism. It allowed him to actually receive space-time as an inheritance from the first God, rather than just sort of possessing it by inherent right. It's almost like a divine trust structure. It kind of mirrors that parable of the vineyard in Luke, where the son is clearly the heir.
Right, okay. And the sources then explicitly connect this emptying to a very specific event in history. They state the second God became Adam, essentially becoming like men and humbling himself, being obedient to death, even death on a cross. Philippians, again, chapter 2, verses 6 through 8 detail that.
Exactly. And what these texts reveal is really quite striking. The crucifixion isn't just presented as a historical event, but as the actual pivotal means by which the second God inherited space-time, inherited that name above all names, and the divine throne itself. It was apparently through this ultimate act of, humble obedience that ultimate authority was actually conferred. It's a profound link these texts make between humility and supreme power.
So then, what does this inheritance mean for his power and authority? Because Matthew 28.18 makes this incredibly bold claim. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.
Right. And connecting that to the bigger picture, this all authority is directly tied to that name above all names we mentioned. The sources are pretty clear. This immense authority, it isn't limited. It explicitly extends over angelic realms, over death and Hades, and it encompasses all of space-time. And this inherited name, it's identified as the triune name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So absolute and totally comprehensive authority.
And then your sources give us this really striking picture in Revelation chapter 1, describing the resurrected second God, glowing eyes, white hair, a powerful voice, and holding the keys of death and Hades.
Despite appearing in what seems like a creature-like or maybe angel-like form after the resurrection, the text suggests the second God actually transcends these categories. Holding the keys to death and Hades, that signifies not just power over them, but the ultimate authority to command them, to dispose of them, even eventually casting them into the lake of fire when sin is finally dealt with and removed from space-time. The sources also state this being is the first and the last, which implies he's simultaneously present everywhere in all moments and uniquely sustaining space-time itself. It's really profound truth presented here. These texts essentially tell us that space-time, all of creation, actually exists within the second God.
Wow. That's quite an incredible journey our sources map out for us. From the second God's deliberate self-emptying to his ultimate inheritance of, everything, all authority. It really does reshape how you might think about divinity and power, doesn't it?
It really does. And maybe leave you with this thought. Consider the profound mystery here. The one who willingly emptied himself to inherit space-time now, according to these texts, simultaneously sustains every single moment and every place within himself. He ultimately holds the power to overcome even death itself. So what does it mean for your understanding of existence that such immense power is exercised through an ultimate act of humble obedience? Something to ponder.